Now, our special speakers from Red Hat. First, Steve Poole. Steve is not a stranger to us. Steve has come here in the past few years. So welcome back, Steve. Steve
Thank
is
you.
a developer advocate. Yeah, developer advocate,
Yep.
DevOps practitioner, long list, right? Long time IBM Java developer, but now at Red Hat, leader, evangelist. Deep experience in Java SDKs and JVMs since Java was born. And he represents and leads various JSRs and a committer on open source projects, you name it, Apache, Eclipse, OpenJDK. Now you are also a member of the Adoptium, Adopt OpenJDK group. And is very seasoned international speaker and regular presenter at many major conferences around the world. So welcome, Steve. And then we have Aaron Schnabel, my favorite person in the world. So Aaron is a principal software engineer at Red Hat, but Aaron also was a longtime Java engineer, software engineer, right, at IBM too. And she's also a Java champion, a developer, an advocate, an architect, maker of things at Red Hat. Loves to learn and teach by coding many things such as Monster Combat and Game On. So contact Aaron for those projects and more. Then we also have our Utah Jug leader, Jason Porter. So welcome. And Jason is a principal software engineer at Red Hat, again, president of Utah Jug, and a community advocate and an author and co-author of several books, including O'Reilly Quarkus Cookbook. So now the stage is all yours, Steve, Aaron, and Jason. So
I'll kind of kick things off. So hello, everyone. My name is Jeff Beck. I'm a product marketing manager at Red Hat. Really think of me as a little bit of an MC and just coordinating this event to make sure, we're kind of staying on time and on target, making sure we answer all your questions. So first, I want to thank everyone for joining and having us. This is I believe it's the 10th Quarkus World Tour stop that we've had thus far, and thus far they've been a great success. Our goal is obviously to reach out to Java developers across the world, and for those who aren't familiar with Quarkus, introduce it, what it is, why it's important, and for those who may be interested, kind of keeping with the theme of the concert is taking requests and answering any questions. So if someone's got something specific they want to talk about, please chime in. I'll be monitoring the chat. So kind of as Aaron and Jason kind of work their magic, I'll watch the chat in the background. So please feel free to ask any questions or make any comments. So what I want to do is kind of talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing today. Looks like Jason's sharing his screen here. So we're going to do a quick intro to Quarkus, and then we're going to quickly jump into showing some demos and some code. So we'll do a hello world. We'll kind of talk a little bit about the the performance and the operational efficiencies of Quarkus, and then we'll talk a little about native compilation and talk about some more advanced stuff like some extensions, metrics, and monitoring and those kind of things. But just because we have that agenda, once again, don't hesitate to stop us, ask questions, or even maybe take a few requests here in terms of you wanting to see something different. What's been great about the World Tour so far is we've had different experts on for each one. So every show has a little bit different flavor to it and a different angle. So that's one of the things we really like and enjoy about this session. So with that being said, what I wanted to do was paint a little bit of context. Obviously, this is a Java users group, so everyone is more than familiar with the historical significance of Java. And what we kind of saw as a trend over the last 2 years or so, we saw these inklings of or whispers of people saying, "Is Java still relevant?" And obviously, we all could agree that it has never been more relevant. And with some of the newer frameworks and technologies like Quarkus and Spring Boot natives coming out and the GraalVM stuff, it has never been more relevant as we move forward here. So when we were talking about traditional Java frameworks really focused on throughput, right, at the expense of footprint. So and they were long-running applications that really didn't care as much about speed, cared about speed, but the startup time wasn't as significant or as important as now. And so the the rich dynamic behavior of a mutable system was really more of a concern. But as we think about moving into containerized applications, microservices, and kind of the cloud world, we're thinking more about throughput being solved with scaling of containers. Scaling up, scaling down. These these containers can be started up and killed just as quickly as they need be. And really now what we start to see is that footprint and performance matter more. So the memory matters, the startup time matters more, because if we're starting and stopping containers, that becomes an extremely important part of this. So this is kind of where this is the backdrop of Quarkus. And so when we talk about Quarkus, we think about we call it supersonic subatomic Java. So obviously it's a small footprint, small usage of memory, fast startup times, and this is kind of where the project started. The project is about a little over 2 years old at this point, and we've seen significant uptick in growth from the Java development community. And so when we talk about Quarkus, we say it's a Kubernetes native Java stack that can be delivered both obviously on a OpenJDK hotspot or in native mode using GraalVM. And one of the quotes we always hear from developers, it's the Java they're familiar with. It's familiar but new. So familiar Java libraries and patterns applied to this new cloud native world. But one of the most important things we're going to talk about and showcase more importantly is the focus on developer joy. And I know that's a tongue-in-cheek phrase in terms of what does developer joy really mean. Really, it's the idea of the tooling and the integration with things like, say, Kubernetes that make development easier and bring a little bit more fun back into Java developers' worlds. Okay, so I'm going to get out of the way at this point and turn it over to Jason. I just wanted to kind of kick things off and set the stage. So I'm going to be watching the chat. So please feel free to chime in. Go off of mute if you want to. It will be more fun for everyone, and it will be a better experience if you do. So thanks again, and Jason, I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thanks. I'm going to assume that everyone can hear me. If that's not the case, then definitely let me know. And I think I stopped sharing, so let's do this again.
Yeah, I stole it from you because your screen wasn't showing. So I was like, let's just grab it.
Yeah. Cool.
So I'm hoping your screen comes back now.
Yeah. Oh man, I am totally blaming this on WebEx on this one. Yep. Everything's looking good this morning.
WebEx effect.
Connecting, content share, connecting. And here we go with WebEx on Linux that does not work well in the browser apparently.
No, it doesn't, which is
Yep, it still wants to connect, and I know it's not my network. I'm sitting on gigabit at basically full throttle, and it does not want to do anything. You know what, Aaron, can you take over for a second? I'm going to hop out and try hopping back in Firefox and see if that makes a difference instead of Chromium.
Okay, I think, yeah, okay. So let me see. We're going to jump ahead then because Jason was going to do the hello world and I was going to do some more advanced stuff. But I should be able to, can you guys see my screen? Did I flip it right? I don't think I flipped it right.
Yeah.
Not yet.
No, I pushed the wrong button. I know what I did.
Door B. What's behind door B?
Yeah, exactly. Did I get it right this time? Did I do it right?
Yes.
I can see.
Okay, so we're going to go forward a little bit and then I'll show you. So he's going to go through what a hello world looks like. But we can talk a little bit about how a Quarkus runtime starts, right? So when you're usually going to start an application and you're using Maven or you're using Spring or using an usual thing, you're building your application and then you run your application and it goes through, let's load the config file, let's figure out what's on the class path, let's, make sure we get all of the dependency injection. And, of course, that changes a lot. If you're back in the old school using an imperative model, it's some controller going and initializing all of its pieces. If you're using something like Liberty does, for example, with OSGI declarative services, you're still doing something that's like getting all the dependencies constructed and injected. And then you start all of your threads and kick the server off. So what Quarkus tries to do is it tries to push all of that, or as much as it can, to build time. So you take your, it basically tries, as we go through the build, it looks to see, all right, what beans are installed. In this case, I'm talking CDI beans, right? What beans are available? How can I, do I know which ones are required? Can I record this is a bytecode recording thing. Can I record a priori that this bean is connected to this bean and this bean is connected to this bean? So it kind of constructs as much as possible that dependency tree and bakes it in at build time, which means at runtime, you're doing a lot less dynamic construction because it already knows all of the answers, which means your runtime starts much faster. That's the premise. So again, what we're trying to do is move as much as possible to the build phase, right? And then minimize any extra stuff that happens dynamically at runtime. The side effect of this is that at build time, we can start to evaluate, is this code path even on? Do you have anything using XYZ annotation? Oh, you don't. Well, we're just not even going to turn any of that on. And I can show you an example of what that looks like. And that helps introduce some clear contracts between what metadata is around and how it's used. And that on its own, without relying on Graal or any native magic stuff, significantly shrinks the footprint of your runtime. There's some other things that we wanted to show, but so we mentioned Monster Combat for those of you that care. This is the most ludicrous app I wrote ever. It is in GitHub. It's Monster Combat right there. And what it basically does is it makes Dungeons and Dragons monsters fight each other. The entire purpose of this is because I was working on metrics as a concept. And this led to the construction of the micrometer metrics extension that's now part of Quarkus core. For the purposes of this discussion, what's interesting to note is that within my Monster Combat application, I have 3 versions. I have one that's written it's in Quarkus, obviously, but it's using micrometer and it's also using REST-easy reactive. If I go here and I pull up the encounter resource, which is my endpoint, this is scrolling pretty fast, but you can see it has a path. It has usual things that look like get. In this case, REST-easy reactive is non-blocking, but it deals with all that non-blocking behavior in the background. I didn't have to change or do anything crazy to my runtime. The relevant part here is I'm using a combat metrics library. I'll show you that in a second. I'm only mentioning it because we'll look at some performance behavior. This other one is also using Quarkus, but it's using small array metrics, right? That was a contrast that I had. Small array metrics looks a little different. It's using just REST-easy, but how it makes its measurements is different because small array has a different API. It also has Spring. And the interesting thing with Spring, I'm using Webflux. So that's the most direct comparison with REST-easy reactive in that it is also non-blocking. So if I look at my controller here, the endpoints look very similar. I've got beans coming in. Oh, that's the application. I want my controller, dummy. It's a REST controller. It's got request mappings, the usual stuff. It's calling a common set of functions for building these encounters and running things. So basically between if you look between the Spring version and my Quarkus version, they're using the same code to actually run this stuff, right? So we're pretty similar to what we want to do. Now I have some shell script things here, which I just added today. So I'm going to use start. I'm going to turn on I already built all these jars. I did a little bit of cooking in the kitchen ahead of time, right? I could show you what all the building looks like, but I'm going to start a couple versions of the app at the same time, including things in native mode, right? So we'll do, and I'm going to turn on my native mode and I'm going to say start. Oops, except that I added, am I in the right place? Yes. What did I do? Oh, I know what I did. I cleaned things. Well, good. You guys get to see what it looks like when I build stuff now. Since I've got to go make my jars. This is what happens when you try to re-prepare things. So here we're going to show you something else. I can still show you this. So this is going to do a normal build of all of my libraries. You'll see it kick into building native mode in a second, which is something we were going to talk about later. So anyway, so here's your standard Spring build. It's going to run tests. When we get to the place where it gets into native mode, here it's going to build an image for Spring. It's also going to build an executable jar in a second. But Quarkus is going to do its a priori optimization. It's running some tests at this point. We're going to build the other one. When it gets to native mode, you're going to see that it's going to take a little bit of time. Native mode isn't particularly fast, but what native mode is doing, that's not going to work. I know what I just did, I think. Hang on. Can't talk and type at the same time. Yes, I know. Yes, yes, yes. Let's put ourselves with Grawl because
you're doing a
otherwise
pretty
native
good
mode won't
job.
work. Yeah, well, you know, scripty things, and then I do other scripty things, and then I forget to turn Grawl on, so that won't work. So there, we'll fix it. So anyway, we'll build the jars, and so the jars are going to go by. I do some things in my jars that are maybe a little unusual, but the build is pretty normal. It's pretty normal stuff. In the case of Quarkus, your palms look pretty standard. The interesting thing you can start including in your palms, actually I have it buried because it's common. I've got noise coming from somebody's microphone, but I'm not sure whose. Mike? There you go. So like there's different builds. Quarkus tends to use profiles for whether or not you're turning native mode on and off, for example. Once you get to native mode here, it's still running tests. I need to add skip tests to this is what I need to do. Here we go. I'm going to repackage. It doesn't like this, but it'll do it anyway. Here's where it's going to do the front load part, make sure the tests are okay. I do need to add skip test to this. Feedback for Aaron's future self. Here. So here you can start seeing it looks funny. It's doing the native build steps. In this case, one of the tricky bits with build steps or with native builds is I'm building this for a Mac, right? So it's going to be a native binary for Mac OS. Sometimes if I'm building this in a container image, I end up building a binary that I can't run locally. It'll only run in the container because it's, you know, Linux architecture. So you do have to be aware of what you're building your image for. But you can see this is taking a long time. And what it's doing is it's looking at actually referenced classes. It's doing dead code path analysis to remove things. And this is what makes it so that when the image runs, as we'll see in a second, that the footprint and everything is so much smaller because it has literally removed from existence anything that I'm not using. And when you hear people talk about how they make, and you can also see actually right here, if you look here, this big long command line, right? It's a kind of fussy command line. The nice thing is that Quarkus is making that command line for you. So if I look at my application properties, for example, I look at these application properties, I have an instruction right here for native mode that says I have this file and I need you to include it in the native image so the native image can find it. And that's because if you don't do it, the native image won't be able to see it. It literally packs everything in, and if it's not there, it's gone. And so Quarkus has a lot more properties just than that one that help you create this fussy command line because nobody wants to remember all of those options. It'll make you insane. I do have this whole set of applications actually running on my Linux box also. It's the same application. So we can look at what a Grafana dashboard looks like for JVM and memory usage. These have been running since yesterday. So they're way at steady state. I don't have the containers tuned, so it looks like, you know, the heap that they're using, if I go down here, that they're using like insane amounts of memory. And that's because I haven't tuned them at all. This first one is Quarkus with micrometer. The second one is Spring with micrometer. So if we go down and look at the heap pools, for example. So like allocated Eden space for Spring is 64 megs, the current, not the max, but the current. And the same measurement, did I miss it? Yeah, right here. That's 64. The max is the used max is 592, but the current is 64. I get that a GC just happened because we're watching GCs happen. Old gen is 15. This is interesting. We're actually at 20. I'm probably missing things where Quarkus is actually using more at the moment. But for some of these, you can see that Quarkus does end up using less than what Spring does. Old whip gen, here we're at 15. Compressed class space is at 5, and the meta space is at 44. And the meta space here is just 34, and the compressed class space is only 4, so it's like a meg less. So there's some differences. Once you get to runtime, it kind of depends on which path is active and when the last GC hit. So we're kind of spiky there. I have somewhat consistent traffic coming to both of them. This is the memory one. If I flip to the full one and pull this at Spring, yeah, these have been running for 15 hours. Let's go to 12, right? You can see it's pretty, like it's kind of, it is spiky because it's optimizing across a couple different processes. I want this one. That one's Quarkus now. Get this to 12. But you can see they're fairly similar in behavior, but the space, I'll show you what it looks like actually when it starts if we're done. Because this can be kind of hard to read. And this is also after they run for 12 hours each, so they're at steady state in a sense. Now we're doing the MP metrics image. So you can see at the end of a micrometer image, this is like keep used, like you need a lot of space to construct an image because it's inflating everything that the memory is using. So it's one of the most frustrating things that people don't expect about creating native images. They think native images are going to be super small, but it takes a lot of memory and a lot of time to construct a native image because it's basically inflating all of these paths to try to figure out which ones you don't need so that I can then remove them. It's like you're doing all of your JIT all at once up front. There we go. Okay. So now I should be able to start things and it should work. Oh, Spring is mad. Of course, Spring is mad. That is this command. Likes package repackage for some dumb reason. I don't understand Spring. I use it all the time. That is not a denigration of Spring. It just confuses me sometimes because it's super picky. Come on. And then I want this one. This one. Yes, and you have to do the Docker thing again. Of course you do. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, that looks better. Now if I do this, I have 5, which is great, right? So I have Spring, 2 Quarkuses in JVM mode, and 2 Quarkuses in native mode. And if I show the memory usage of them, that's not what yeah, it's right there. What did I do? Now. All right, we'll do the other one. Fine. There's top. And it's only picking up 3 of them, but that's okay. Why is it only picking up 3 of them? Because it is. Oh, I know why. I know why. That's why I had to do that. I had to do a TR with a squash because it's white space. That's why. That's going to be the same. Yeah. So if we show this one now, we should be at 5. Aha! Fixed. There we go. Okay, so we've got our 3 Java processes and we've got 2 native processes. And okay, so if I pull up my terminal windows, where did all my terminal windows go? Not you. You are definitely not a terminal window. Also across screens, of course. So let's make this bigger. No, that's not print. Did that make it bigger? Can you guys see? That is not what I said for you to do. Thank you. Okay. So if I go here, does everybody have a crazy naming convention for their directories? I have a really weird Git structure. It's kind of insane. So if I do this one again, I can still see my numbers here. Let's make this one. We can make this go smaller, I think. So 465 is Quarkus MP metrics, right? That's at 95 megs. Now notice this is before it starts. So there's a difference between, like, for example, small metrics and micrometer at startup, where micrometer is a little bigger. It's at 108, but you can see these two are still tinier than 2020, which is Spring. So the 2 Quarkus JVM mode processes are hovering at around 100 megs. The Spring process is at 535 megs out of the gate. Now the 2 native processes, you're in Ks, right? So you're like significantly smaller. So now what we can do is I can take my MC client, and this is just going to start spamming things like crazy. I've got to remember, I just changed all of these scripts to make my life easy this morning. So now I have to remember what they are. Yes. Okay. So what I'm going to do for this one is I'm going to do all of my MP metrics ones, which is both native and JVM mode. And I'll do all of my micrometer ones. You'll start to see those numbers increase as this goes. If I was going to tail, I can show you what these clients do in a second. If I was going to tail all of my client things, you'd start to see they're issuing requests to say, make some monsters fight each other. And so the 2 monsters fight each other, and I get back a JSON structure that says how many rounds there were in the combat before the 2 monsters, or 3 monsters, or 5 monsters, or as many as 6 monsters finally managed to kill each other so that there's only 1 left. And that's what this is doing. It's generating a crap ton of metrics. And what you're starting to see is the active space in the heap is growing. And it changes a little differently, but you can see there's an order of magnitude difference between what is going on in Spring, what is going on in the 2 Quarkus processes, and then what is going on in the 2 native processes. This is somewhat expected. I have a fairly high cardinality of my tags. So the longer I let this run, the more permutations of tags that I get, which means this is a nuance about metrics, the more counters and gauges and things I'm tracking, right? So that you expect that to grow. There's some differences between metric systems that influences why these numbers are the way they are. But this does give you an idea. I didn't stop the clients, by the way. I just stopped chasing the output. So that gives you an idea of how different it is, right? When these things are running, what the footprint is, how much smaller it is with Quarkus, because it's just not dragging in a lot of dependencies. What else did I just want to show you? Why can't I remember? It's just blanked. Hate that. Jason, does anybody have any questions? Please ask me questions. I'm like flipping around here, and I don't know how useful that is without
so no
context.
questions so far, but you're going to talk about native mode. One of the things with Quarkus is that you showed it that it takes ages to get native compilation to happen. But I think what we gloss over is just how easy it is to use Quarkus to get native combination, rather than trying to do it yourself. So if you try to build,
yeah, if you try to build the command line yourself, I did kind of gloss over it because as a user, it doesn't matter much. One of the things that I was going to talk about, now it's on my wrong screen, later. And so if I want to flip back to, I minimized it, didn't I? This one? This one? Where did you go? This one? Oh, I put you there. No, I didn't put you there. If we flip to, I have too many windows open is what it is. Later in the chart, one of the things we wanted to talk about at some point was extensions. And this gets back to your point in a second, Steve. So we have a pretty big ecosystem for extensions, and it's growing all the time. The micrometer extension, I started while I was at IBM last February, and it has grown. It's part of core now. But one of the things that we have going on now is that the Quarkus extension, or there's a Quarkiverse extension it's a Quarkiverse repository for additional extensions for micrometer. So each backend registry, for example, is an additional extension. And I just had someone last week this is somebody else created this brand new extension to enable the New Relic backend for micrometer. So the reason I want to mention this from what Steve said is one of the things that we can do when you're writing, like the extensions are part of what do all of the magic to make creating native applications easier. So this New Relic processor, for example, is what's going to deal with native mode things. In this case, actually, because it's the first pass, we're just saying, if New Relic is enabled and this is native build, just don't do it. We're just going to say New Relic doesn't work yet, which is totally an option. It's not the best option, but it's an option, right? To say it's not ready yet. But we can take like the Datadog extension, for example. We can go into the Datadog registry provider. And this one says if it's a native build, we're going to add, this is something Quarkus does to make sure that SSL support is on, because the Graal image is a little picky about how and when it knows that SSL should be enabled or TLS should be enabled. This kind of thing right here is where we can decide you have micrometer turned on and you have Datadog turned on. Therefore, we need to register some additional CDI beans. This is one of those things where Quarkus is helping to cobble together the a priori knowledge of what beans are there, so that less is done dynamically at runtime. It just knows that those beans are there.
All right. So I think what we're going to do over here. So Aaron's done a great job of showing you what Quarkus looks like when you've got something that's a little bit more substantial than Hello World. What I'm going to be doing and taking a look at is kind of starting from the ground up and getting your feet wet. And what we're doing over here is we're over here at code.quarkus.io, which is a project builder that you can use for Quarkus just to get things up and running. So to get things going really easily, we're going to start with JaxRS. We're going to add some Jackson, and I think we're also going to add OpenAPI. I think that'll about do it for us. So we're going to come over here, generate the project, and you can see that it's going to give me a zip. There was also an option to actually push it to GitHub, but we're going to go with that. So we've got code with Quarkus.zip, and we'll just move this. That's going to go over here to temp, unzip, and then I'm going to come over here to Intellij. So Aaron showed you VS Code. I'm going to show Intellij. There are a few little things that are different, but for the most part, they're pretty much the same. So what we start with, we've got a really basic README to tell you how to get started and whatnot. And then there's also some code kicking around. Did I not get code? I should have gotten code. Example code. Yes, please. Hey, there it goes. It just needed to figure things out a little bit. I'm not sure where the echo is coming from, but that's okay. We've got main, source, Java, you know, all your standard stuff. So we've got a basic JAX-RS. This is going to be very familiar to anyone that's done JAX-RS stuff. That is, again, nothing really too special, but it is there. And we are going to, actually, let's add this one. I am going to run Maven. And we are going to do a compile and Quarkus dev. So this will start Quarkus in dev mode, which you did not show, Aaron, but there are some cool things that dev mode gives us, and we will take a look at that.
Yeah.
So we're going to run, this will be all familiar Maven stuff. In dev mode, you can see that it already starts a debugger for us, so we can attach a debugger if we need to. It starts up fairly quickly. This one started in just under 3 seconds. I have seen it start significantly faster, but you know, there's things like encoding video and whatnot that that takes some time. And come over here, localhost 8080. So we've got our basic Quarkus. Hey, there's stuff over here. You can run your REST-easy endpoint over here, which is great. And you can also come over here to the dev mode, the dev console over here. And what we're going to see is we've got a config editor. So these will all change things as they happen live. We talked about CDI beans. So you can see the beans that are all there as well. So these are all of the active beans that are running in the application. And if you look at removed beans, this one says there's 45 removed beans. So you can take a look. These are all the beans that are not actually actively running. So they're in the application to some degree or another, but they're not actively being used. And that's important when you're in native mode, because those things essentially get removed. We can take a look at Swagger, which is really cool here in the dev mode. So we've got, you can actually run and test your endpoints here. It's kind of similar to Postman. We got try it out. This isn't going to be anything special. You can see we've got a response body. It gives us the headers, and if you want to copy and paste a curl command or just the URL, you've got that. So there's all of that kind of stuff that that is there and makes a whole lot of sense, makes things easy.
So Jason, can I interrupt you? Question: what is the CDI acronym?
So CDI stands for Context and Dependency Injection, which is a micro profile and Java. Sorry, it was Java EE. It's now Jakarta EE specification for doing dependency injection and inversion of control.
Hopefully that answered that question. Thank you.
In any further questions?
Nope, that was just popped
Cool.
up.
Alrighty. Let's see. I am going to now. One of the things that you can do in the VS Code that is not here in Intellij just yet, you can actually run a command in VS Code to have it modify your POM for you, which is kind of cool. I'm going to add some dependencies over here. So we are going to add. Which one do I want to add here? Let's do. You know what? We're going to do hibernate. Or no. We got rest. It's not here. All right. I'll come back to that. But I am going to add a really simple class here, and this will show off some of the cool things that Quarkus lets you do. I'm going to add a person class, and this person class is going to, at some point in time, become an entity, but we're going to start with basic stuff. So we've got a string over here that'll be a name and a local date. This will be a birthday. Now you'll notice that I'm doing these publicly, and that is one of the things that Quarkus will modify at build time when this becomes an entity. So it will actually use the getters and setters that you're used to, but just for brevity and for the developer experience, we're just going to call these public fields and be done with it. So that's not going to be anything special. And I would really like to get the rest of my panache stuff going on so we can see that. Dependency, hibernate, RM. No. I love how it's not here. All right, we're going to do this as Quarkus. And it's going to tell me, no, we don't want to do any of this stuff. We're going to do this one. Rest data panache. I don't want the parent, though. All right, and what this one is going to do, and for a, oh, I need to start a container because we're going to actually do some fun stuff with datas. So we're going to use Postgres over here, and it's already used. Cool. Podman. Paste the thing. There we go. So Postgres is running in the background. We should have all things over here, and we are also going to get a JDBC driver. Thanks. I was going to find it for him. Postgres. There we go. All right. Now you'll notice that every time I make changes over here, it's picked up that things have changed, and it is going to go and do live reloading and whatnot on Quarkus. So that's all there. We're going to actually turn this into an entity. And
your screen is being really slow to load.
Is it? Yeah, it is.
There we go.
And also your microphone too, Jason, is a little bit, got some static to it. So
that is good information to have for later. Thanks, Mary.
Oh. Thank you.
Are we going to show it here? Looks like Intellij is creeping along trying to find stuff, which is also less amazing. Let's see. Let's go over here. We'll try code. And I totally did not do the right directory. I don't need it. We'll see which one gets done first, whether it's IntelliJ or VS Code. I've got all the stuff in the POM. So we've got that. I can go check my notes and make sure that we're good. Yeah, that looks good. We've got Postgres. I've got Jackson. So yep, we should be good there. While we're at it, we will go through and the resources. So all of the configuration, I believe Aaron mentioned configuration in Quarkus. One of the things that Quarkus does, all of the configuration for Quarkus is done in the application.properties file. So you'll see stuff that works out well. And Intellij and VS Code have code complete in the application properties. So you've got all of that information over there. That works out really well if you're not quite sure what you want to do. So it's all there, and we're going to just get some stuff. Actually, I don't need to start a container, but, well, I am going to need this though. Data source, DB kind is going to be PostgreSQL, Quarkus.datasource. Username, the amazingly secure username and password of Quarkus. And anything else? Let's see. Probably okay, but we will go ahead and use it explicitly. JVC URL. JVC PostgreSQL. If I can type today. Localhost 5432, and Quarkus will be the one over there. I don't need a Java project. Did it not find it? It's all there. And neither one of them really want to give me any help, which is awesome. The dependencies there, I just need you to go pick it up, please. Rebuild, compare, even reload. This is one of those fun things doing everything live, right? Stuff never seems to work out the way that you want it to, but such is life.
So we're almost done. Find the one bug.
That's true. That is true. All right, let's see. Hey, look. Now I've got stuff. Import class entity. Yep. All right. Now we want to be able to also find things. Find by name. This is going to be a string. That's name. Now, Panache, which is one of these things that it's kind of active record like, based on Hibernate. It gives you a lot of these really easy utility methods and shortcuts that you can use to find things, to persist, all of that kind of stuff. So this is going to actually run a select statement based on the name over here that we're passing in. And one more thing that I want to do on this one. So we are going to add, and this is listed as experimental, but it's been in Quarkus for let's see, we're at 1.13. It came out in 1.7, so it's been in here for a while. It just hasn't been listed as non-experimental. So this is going to be an interface. This is going to be the people resource. Yep. And it is going to extend Nash entity resource. There it is. And this is a person. Long is the ID. And I should about do it. So let's see. What don't you like over here? Are we good? I'm going to stop this and we're going to run this again and see what Maven decides to do on this one. Well, it didn't blow up on the compilation, so it looks like things are good. Intellij just needs to catch up. All right, so this took a little bit longer to start up, not a whole lot, but you will see, so down here we've got the installed features down here, and there are significantly more that we've got, but we're going to get some really cool stuff off of this. So let's come back here to our Swagger API. And you will notice that we now have people, we've got a post, a get, a put, and a delete. And all of that came from our entity over here and our interface, so our people resource. And Quarkus is going along at build time and building the whole JAX-RS thing for us over here. So if we've done everything right, let's give this a shot. We're going to actually build something. Sure, we'll say I was born today, just for kicks and giggles. And we've got over here, things blew up. And my guess is that was because, yep, we didn't actually get the database. We didn't hit the database for some unknown reason. What do we got here? Oh, I know what happened. So we need to tell Quarkus to actually do the hibernate orm. We want create schemas. This is going to be true. Quarkus.hibernate orm. Generate. Where are you? We are going to drop and create. All right, let's go through run this again. Is it going to pick it up? I don't see that it's picked it up. It should have. Oh, we're running here. Hot replace. Yep, hot replace took 0.72 seconds. And let's see if we now have something that hits the database. Can't even type my own name today. Hey, we did. So we've got a return over here. We've got one. We can come over here and, of course, hit all the stuff that you would expect. So people is going to crap out on us and not give us what we want. But we can do it locally. People. And we get a JSON array that's got this over here. We can come back. Oh, there was something else I wanted to show you. Not only with just the Swagger, but let's come back over here to, so there's OpenAPI that is built in as well. And this gives you a YAML. What's the word I'm looking for? A YAML representation of your API if you're doing API development. So you can see over here our paths. We've got hello rest easy. There's a get endpoint. People has a get endpoint, a post endpoint. People with a path parameter has a get and a put, and also a delete. Then there's the Jackson stuff over here. And all the way down at the bottom, you've got your schemas for a person and a quark, and the quark comes through the Jackson stuff. So a person, as we know, has an ID, has a birth and a name. The string, this is a date in a string, this is an integer. So all of that kind of stuff comes out of the box for you right there with using Swagger and SmallRay OpenAPI. And then you get all of this. If you're not quite sure how to get started with these extensions that you have listed over here, you can take a look, and all of these will send you over to the Quarkus guide. And you can run through each of these. It'll tell you how to get started. It'll give you some code that you can copy and paste and just get you off the ground running as quickly as possible on that. So I think, let's go back. I think we've covered all of that. Are there any questions that people have so far? I mean, I know I ran through a lot of that fairly quickly, but questions?
Nothing on the list that I can see.
Okay. Alrighty. What do we got going on next? We talked about that. We talked about native compilation. Course extensions, micrometer. What else? We did kind of briefly talked about the community. You can see the stuff in the Quarkiverse. There's also all of these other extensions. We're over 450, I believe, currently, extensions that run on Quarkus. Some of them are experimental or preview, but they are there that you can use. You can write your own extensions. Erin can talk about that if she wants to talk about the micrometer extension and how that all came together and whatnot. But I believe we've hit a lot of what we wanted to. Erin, do you have anything else you wanted to cover?
So we had we went through, talked about some of the extensions earlier. We talked about how the micrometer extension works and how now it's easier for people to contribute their own extensions through Quarkiverse. There's a lot of infrastructure there to help you create your own. I think it's also interesting, we have the second drop of the 2.x 2.0 alpha that's out. One of the most interesting things about the alpha, and I don't have my workspace set up right now because I've been focusing on another aspect, but one of the cool things that they have going on right now is continuous testing, so that you can basically in a console window, Quarkus will, in dev mode, so you start dev mode and it's basically running there in your console window, it will continuously run your tests and will rerun those tests that are related to the code that you've changed. So it won't necessarily rerun like all of the unit tests defined in your bucket. It will subselect the ones that are impacted by code that you've changed, and it will just keep running those. For anybody that's used to develop, like node development with Mocha, for example, or something like that, it'll feel very similar. There is some interactivity to it, so you can pause it, resume it. You know, it's really cool. I'm actually in the middle of revamping and streamlining the CLI, the 2.x release. So we'll have a better CLI story that would incorporate then how you kick off both dev mode and this continuous testing kind of behavior and how you get in and out of debugging and all that kind of stuff. So that's all coming. Quarkus Insights we do that every Monday, more or less. We have a live stream. Continuous testing is either scheduled or it just happened. My brain is not remembering, but I know we have some demos and stuff of this continuous testing mode coming up, and I am super excited about it because it is stinking cool. That's all I have to say. So it's stinking cool.
There's a question about that. If you want to go to the chat, you'll probably read it easier than me reading it out.
Where is it?
In the chat, it says, is that selection based on code coverage, or how is it choosing the tests that are connected?
Oh, yeah, it's right there.
Okay,
It
good.
is based on
Yeah.
code coverage. It absolutely is. It's doing crazy code coverage stuff under the covers. It's amazing. But yes, it is absolutely code coverage based. But it's code coverage that you didn't have to configure. It's like Quarkus is as part of Quarkus does a bunch of buildy things too, obviously, because we're moving so much. We joke amongst ourselves all the time. Is Quarkus a runtime? Is it a framework? Is it a build tool? It's like yes.
Yes.
I don't know, kind of. So it's doing a bunch of magic stuff to be able to do that dynamic.
So did you? I'm not sure whether it came up because I sort of lost the plot a bit. I have to drop and go back. What's the? Did we talk about remote dev?
No, we didn't. So it is possible when you're setting up the Quarkus dev mode to also say we're going to do it remote to a Quarkus that's running in a container, and that container could be Docker Compose container, or it could be off in a Kubernetes container. It is a special mode that basically lets you get that dev inner loop experience for something that's working remote. Yeah. Obviously, lots of caveats apply, like do not put that in production upon penalty of all kinds of things going wrong.
Right, but just to take a step back and think about that. So you've got your IDE, you've got Quarkus running in dev mode, you make changes, the code gets recompiled and deployed in this intelligent way in your application that's running live on a Docker container on Kube.
Yeah.
And you can run tests against it too. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, yeah. So you're quite right. What is Quarkus? Don't know, but it does all this cool stuff.
It's not that we don't know, it's that it's not just one thing is the problem. We definitely know, but it's got a little bit of a lot of things in it. So I think we are kind of losing people, and it's been an hour-ish. So I don't know that I want to keep beating on a drum, but I do hope we get lots of questions. The Zulip chat, like if you go to the Quarkus website, which is Quarkus.io. Why can't I do all the things? I can't talk and type at the same time. I am incapable, apparently, of doing.
Now, Jeff's got Quarkus.io in the chat. That is the easiest thing to do. Or just Google for Quarkus. You'll easily find it.
Yes. But on the Quarkus.io website is all the information, including a newsletter, stuff that we have going on, the getting started, the guides. We're in a Zulip chat. We've got a mailing list. Come find us and talk and contribute and ask questions and whatever you want.
Yeah. We also created a world tour sound check page. You can go afterwards to kind of the lay of the land in terms of how to get started. There's low friction experiences, all these kind of things. So that's I put a link in there. It's Quarkus.io/world tour/sound check, and that's a good place to start as well.
Yeah. And the most important thing, of course, is to talk to Mary after this and about how she can lay her hands on a Quarkus Road Tour World Tour T-shirt.
Oh yeah,
yes, that's right. Get swag.
Yes.
Okay.
Good swag.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Okay. Sounds like we're done.
So I will.
I also just pasted in the chat. If you're interested in a free ebook copy of the Quarkus code cookbook that I helped co-author, so it's over here. You can go over to developers.redhat.com and take a look at that, and you can get the ebook version of that for free.
Continuous testing, that thing I mentioned, it is on the slate for Monday. So if you want to go see what this Quarkus testing thing looks like on Monday, it will be on Quarkus Insights on Monday at 9 a.m. Eastern on YouTube. Yeah, so that should be linked from all the places, and it's awesome.
So that's like the Red Hat Quarkus channel on YouTube, is that correct?
The Quarkus.io, channel.
Channel.
Let me get the channel for you.
Once a week, an hour of chat and usually some cool demos.
Yeah, but so on Monday we will be having this.
Cool. Thank you.
I added a link for that one, Aaron, if you want to click on it.
Yes. Thank you. That's way better. No, that's super.
Thank you.
That link, Mary. The
I got
Quarkus
it, yeah.
Insights link is way easier to remember. Yes, yes, yes.
Thank you. Thank you. That's what it is.
Super.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, you
Oh.
should totally check out that demo. It is still very much baking,
Okay.
but it is cool.
Cool.
So,
Thank you.
super duper cool.
Maybe I just have one question, if you don't mind. So I know that we can mix. Yeah. Okay. Quarkus, we're supposed to be able to like mix, right? Like imperative and declarative, reactive programming. So how would you, or is
So
there
that's
any
what's
kind of
interesting.
write-up?
I showed you. What do I want to do? What am I doing? I'm sharing my screen.
Yeah. Maybe you can just.
So like I showed you my monster combat application thingy, right? Where I said that this Quarkus micrometer, this project, right? I'm using 2 extensions, Rest Easy Reactive and Rest Easy Reactive Jackson, right? That gives me Jackson support for all my JSON stuff.
Okay.
Now, what's interesting though is like when you look at this code, I haven't done anything special. This looks like normal imperative REST stuff. What's interesting is that in this case, for this app, I'm not doing any blocking activities like going and talking to a database, right?
Yeah.
If I did, it would yell at me. And it would say, no, 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 you're not allowed to do that without adding a blocking annotation.
Okay.
So you add the blocking annotation, and that signals this is a blocking method. So I'm already mixing without obviousness. I'm mixing my non-blocking and blocking behavior without necessarily doing the next thing, which I can do now that I have Rest Easy Reactive here. Any of these could be returning unis or multis for mutiny.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Right. So in this case, I had this written as a regular REST application. And so I can get reactive behavior by just switching over to Rest Easy Reactive because I happen to not be doing any significantly blocking operations.
Okay.
Right. But I could then start switching these over to be returning uni and multi to have much more reactive signatures, I guess you would say. Right. But then I can still tag some of these methods as blocking so that I can mix those workloads when I need to.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Okay.
You are welcome. We should probably sit down together because I know you do Twitch stream coding. It would have to be like a, warning label on it for Aaron language usage because I'm sure some inappropriate words will come out. But we should maybe try to write one because I know you do a lot with the reactive stuff where we play with what that looks like.
That's right.
That could be really cool.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds good. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Great. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So does anybody have questions for Jeff, Steve, Aaron, or Jason? Yeah, it's 1:25 here in Chicago. So I know it's a work day, middle of the day. So some of the folks probably have to go back to work. So that's why, yeah. And again, the session is being recorded, so folks can watch it again on demand. So it's been a relatively quiet audience. Some days we get more questions than others. So,
yes, Greg, the native compilation was using Graal. We also use Mandrill, so Mandrill happens also. I was using Graal.
And just to reiterate this, because people do ask, you don't have to go all the way to native compilation. You can use Quarkus with a standard JVM and still get good performance.
Which I showed, I think, right?
Yes. Well, people sometimes think that Quarkus is just for component native, and it's not.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And yeah, are there any more questions? I think maybe folks are eager to get back to work.
Yes.
So, yeah. But not for Steve. It's evening time for Steve. So,
oh yeah, gin and tonic time now.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
All right. Thanks for having us, Mary.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks, Mia.
Thank you so much. And Jeff,
Thank you.
Steve, Aaron, and Jason, and for being here. And I guess we have so few people, so we will save the raffle of the Intellij license to next time because it just doesn't make sense to raffle off to only maybe just a few who are here. So
Oh, come on. That's
and
what
we-
they were hanging on for.
Yeah.
yeah, I know. Okay, we'll take a note of who's here, and then we may kind of just give them priority next time. So, but our next meetup, please join us on the 20th for Hendrik Ebers and Karsten Toms on the microservices framework. So, yeah, and again, once again, thank you so much to all of our speakers today and Red Hat, the Quarkus World Tour. And I think if they want to follow any of you, they can find you like your Twitter handle that we have earlier, or find you on LinkedIn or Red Hat developers website, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Very
you.
cool.
Thank you,
Thank
man.
you. Thank you,
Bye then.
everybody.